Welcome, everyone. We're excited to have you here at our webinar, and happy World Accreditation Day. I'm going to give it just a minute to let everybody in. We have a wonderful attendance today, and I see a lot of people entering the webinar, so we'll get started in just one moment. All right, I see a number of people still coming in. My name is Cynthia Allen. I work with an organization called Seacrest Consulting. We are a consulting firm that works exclusively with professional certification organizations. The World Accreditation Day is really important to us because we help those professional certification organizations go through the third-party accreditation process. And if we go to the next screen, you'll see a little bit more about my organization. We have partnered with more than 270 credentialing organizations, anywhere from organizations that offer one certification program to those offering many different certification programs, serving tens of thousands of professionals every year. We have helped those organizations go through the third-party accreditation program, about 490 of those accreditation applications. So we really see World Accreditation Day as an important opportunity to talk about the value of accreditation. We see that accreditation as an opportunity to mark the quality of a professional certification program and show that those certification programs are grounded in best practice and are committed to quality and monitoring the evolution of best practice. If we go to the next slide, you'll see that I am joined today by several different panelists that will talk today about a variety of different topics. Lakeisha Morris-Moreau from Grant Professional Certification Institute, Pip Tucker-Kendall from National Grant Management Association, and Reno Deshane from CFRE International. We'll spend some time today talking about their certification programs and the process that you might go through or have gone through to become certified, what those credentials mean, and how accreditation affects those programs. On the next slide, you'll see that we're also going to be joined by two professionals who have gone through the certification process a couple of times. They hold multiple credentials, and they're going to talk a little bit about their certification journey. We have Kristen Rock and Julie Assel, who are going to share how they started in the certification process, what it's been like to go through that journey to hold multiple credentials, and how that's impacted their professional development and their careers. Before we begin, on the next slide, we want to just highlight some of our webinar rules. You're probably familiar with this, having joined several webinars before, I assume. You can use the Q&A function to submit your questions. We do have time allotted at the end of the webinar to go through the questions that we have curated from the registration form that you submitted. There are many thousands of you on this call, so we have curated and kind of categorized those questions as best we can, and our panelists will address as many of them as possible. The chat is also open for your comments and your engagement with not only our panelists who will be monitoring the chat, but also your fellow attendees. We may have polls throughout the session, and if those appear, please feel free to engage in those polls as well. The session is going to be recorded, so you can expect a recording as well as the slides to be shared with you after the webinar. No need to take copious, serious notes. We'll make sure that you have these slides available to you with all the links to the important information that you'll need to learn more about and get more information about the certifications. As we move to the next slide, you'll see what is on today's agenda. We'll spend a little time talking about what accreditation is, why it matters that your certifications in your profession are accredited, and some of the differences between some key terms. And that really means talking about the difference between certification and certificates of completion, which is a really important difference to understand. Then our representatives from our certifying organizations will spend some time walking us through their certifications and the processes associated with them. We'll then switch to our certified individuals who will give us that perspective of their credentialing journeys. And then we'll open it up for our questions and our key takeaways from all of our panelists together. Our goals for this session at a high level on the next slide are really going to be to learn about what accreditation means, and particularly what it means for you, the professional, and then beyond you, the other audiences that you work with, your employers, your other colleagues. What does accreditation mean in the context of the professional certifications you hold and that are available to you? As I mentioned, we'll talk about the difference between certification and certificates. We'll learn about the primary competencies that are associated with the 3 certifications that you'll learn about today. We'll learn more about how do I become eligible, what do I need to do to start this process, and who are the target audiences for each of the credentials that are on the agenda for today. We'll also learn a little bit about the maintenance requirements and how that supports continuing competence, a really key element of the certification process, as we'll talk more about in just a few minutes. And then we'll learn a little bit, and this is incredibly important for this industry, how credentials can complement one another across the funding life cycle. So how do all these credentials fit within the whole life cycle of the industry? So let us start, and let me kick you off using hopefully my experience with those 490 accreditation applications I mentioned earlier, putting all that knowledge to good use, and talk about what accreditation is and why it matters. What you see on the screen here is what I'll call the formal definition of accreditation. It's from the Institute for Credentialing Excellence. And that institute is really the professional association for people like myself and some of my colleagues on the call today who are credentialing professionals. This is kind of our certification professional association. And I won't read the whole definition, but I will highlight some of the aspects of it that are important. Accreditation is granted by a third-party agency that has the authority to grant the recognition to a certifying body, in this case, who has applied and shown or demonstrated that they meet a predetermined set of criteria. And that criteria, in this case, are standards that show the certification program meets best practices. I want to emphasize that the best practices in this case, the standards as we call them, are representative of what a quality certification program should be. They represent that the certification program, the decision that's made to certify or not certify somebody, is based on best practice, and we can trust that decision, that that certified person is competent to perform in the role. It's important to note also that the accrediting body is a third party. They are independent and they are objective in the process. They are coming from an outside perspective and looking in at the organization that offers that certification to ensure that they meet the best practice. The other point that's important to note is that these standards are peer reviewed. There is a group of subject matter experts that come together as individuals who have worked tirelessly in the certification field to develop these standards as best practice. They are also reviewed fairly often, usually every 5 years or so, to make sure they still represent how certification programs should be run and that we're capturing any updates in best practice for ourselves. On the next slide, I want to take just a few minutes to talk about certification versus certificate. And the reason why this is so important is because it is used incorrectly so often in so many different places, and oftentimes within our own field. So when we talk about on the next slide, what you'll see is some kind of high-level definitions, and then we'll show you some really specific differences between those two. So if you could go to the next slide for me, Tammy. You'll see that a certification really is, the goal of that certification is to validate someone's competency in a job role. So it's fairly comprehensive that we're saying this person is competent in the job role, and we have validated it through an assessment system. And that system is comprehensive. We're looking at a number of different areas. A certificate program, on the other hand, the goal of a certificate is to ensure that the individual has acquired a specific set of knowledge or skills that you have intended them to learn. It is very much tied to a training event. And if we go to the next slide, you'll see, and I have to give our panelist Reno credit for this, he has generously shared, and maybe I'll take some luxury with what this is, maybe your elevator pitch for certification versus certificate. Because we get so much confusion around these two phrases, these two products, we all kind of have, how do we explain this to our constituencies? Both products have a lot of rigor behind them. Both products are very valuable and serve a specific purpose, but they are very different. In this case, what you can see, and we won't go through every piece of information on this slide, is that the certification is really the question of, can this person perform? Do they have the required knowledge, skills, and abilities to perform in the job role? Where on the certificate side, we're asking the question, did this person complete the training? We see that it's very much tied to an independent training event. We have defined learning outcomes for the event. The individual completes that training, and maybe we have a knowledge check or an end of course assessment that is tied back to the intended learning outcomes. We are not assessing if they are minimally competent to perform in the role. We are just making sure that they gained the knowledge we wanted them to gain. On the certification side, another important distinguisher is that we are looking for ongoing competence. It is not competence at that initial point and that's it. We want to make sure that if you have that credential after your name, if you carry those letters, like the letters you see in all of our names in the panelist screens, we want to make sure that that represents ongoing competence. Our fields change, the knowledge changes and evolves over time. So if you're certified, that represents that you have that ongoing competence. You are staying up to date with that evolution of knowledge, skill, and ability. So a recertification mechanism is required. Usually that's through things like continuing education, sometimes re-examination, a longitudinal assessment, any mechanism that's appropriate to make sure that you are continuing that process. If we go to the next slide, this is a different visual and kind of the differences between the two. I won't go through each one. Again, we typically see that a certification has those quote unquote letters after the name. And that's important and valuable in the professional development process because it signifies that ongoing competence. In a certificate program, we don't often see that by definition. And this is where I think there can be a lot of confusion in the field. Again, you will have these slides. I encourage you to look over these in more detail and share this with your professional network because it is important that we understand the differences between these two products. Finally, before I pass it off to my other panelists, I just want to talk a little bit about what accreditation really means in terms of how it associates with the certifications that our panelists are going to talk about. When that third party comes in and gives that seal of approval to the certification programs, it's a very detailed process. I'm sure all of the fellow panelists will say it is not a simple thing. They go through many, many months of preparation to make sure that they can document that they comply with the accreditation requirements. What you see on the screen are some of the foundational elements and pillars of what accreditation means. It represents that the organization that administers the program has impartial decision-making in place, meaning that the decision-making around the program is in the best interest of the program. It's impartial, there's not conflicts of interest or undue influence from other parts of the organization, and really they're making decisions in the best interest of the program and the stakeholder it serves. Another element of accreditation that is incredibly important is the fairness and consistency to candidates. We don't have unnecessary barriers. Every element that is required for a candidate serves a specific purpose, and we have standardization and consistency in how requirements are applied to each candidate. The next pillar is ethics and discipline. We have an element where we require a ethical code, a code of ethics, and there's a disciplinary process if those codes, those requirements, policies are violated. There's a disciplinary process where individuals can submit a complaint, and we can put sanctions in place for anybody who violates our ethical code. The exam is a huge part of the certification process. So that exam development needs to be grounded in best practice, and that needs to be continually looked at and updated to make sure that our assessment is making reliable decisions on whether somebody should be certified or should not be certified. The accredited program must show that they are committed to quality management. They must have a proactive system in place to ensure that they are committed to quality improvement, finding ways to be more efficient, and looking for opportunities to prevent and correct errors if they occur. And that needs to be in an ongoing system. And finally, as I mentioned before, they have to be committed to the evaluation of ongoing competence of the certified individuals. It cannot stop with one certification. It needs to be ongoing, that that individual is committed to maintaining that competence. Now, while I can talk about this all day long, and I would love to, I do want to make sure we hear from all of the organizations. So Lakeisha, I'd love to hear more from you about your organization and your program.
Of course. Thank you, Cynthia. And thank you all for joining us today. I am Lakeisha Morris-Moreau, the current president of the GPCI Board of Directors. I know that we have a few more Board of Directors on our webinar tonight, so if they can just drop in the chat, say hello to the group. They'll be hoping to engage with you as well during this day. I am from Miami, Florida, if I have not said that already, and it is an honor for me to share with you a little bit about this organization that has given me so much and is near and dear to my heart. Next slide, please. The Grant Professional Certified, or GPC credential, is the credential that is offered by GPCI, the Grant Professional Certification Institute. Next slide, please. We were founded in 2004 as an independent 501c3 organization, and our mission was to develop and maintain a certification or a credential for those in the grant profession. We offered this first exam in 2007. In May of 2019, GPC received the credential, the accreditation, from the National Commission for Certifying Agencies. This sets high standards, ensuring grant professionals demonstrate technical skills and ethical practices. Our exam is competency-based, and it is focusing on the skills that you all have and have developed as a grant profession. Next slide, please. Here are credential pathways. This talks about how you become eligible for the exam. We have two, Pathway 1 and Pathway 2. Most of the people who sit for our exam fall under Pathway 2. Education and the professional experience categories, those are our non-negotiables. So as you can see, you need 120 points to become eligible for our exam. If you are under Pathway 2 and you are able to qualify for the education and the professional experience, that's already 110 points. We only need 10 more points to make it to the goal, right? So under our continuing education or our professional practice, as well as community involvement, is where you can get those additional 10 points. Now, our eligibility chair, I can hear her in my ear, Katie, saying, you do not get extra credit for getting more than 120 points. So please, you do not have to try and reach that 170 points. You will be deemed eligible at that 120 point mark, but we will see, and you will know that the more eligible you are, the more points you're able to hit, the better you're likely to do on the exam. Next slide, please. Here's an overview of our competencies. Now, for our multiple choice exam, it's 175 questions. You have 4 hours to take the test. And you can see our competencies. This talks about the focus of our exam. And I've separated by the highest weight. So 23% of your multiple choice questions will have to do with grant writing and submission. So the more that you're involved in that pre-award side, the more questions you'll have geared toward that, the GPC is probably the more likely choice for you for your accreditation. We also talk about funding, research, and alignment. That's 18%. Your program and your project design. We don't just write, we listen and we help our clients develop the story and develop their programs and design it as well, right? That's 17%. And then we get down to once you get that award in hand, and we're going to manage that grant as well, that's 10. Ethics standards is 10%. Organizational development, 9%. Funder relationships, we have to keep the money coming in. So we keep our funders happy, 7%. And professional practice and advancement at 6%. It is a well-rounded exam, which I believe that all of them probably will be, but you can see here where the competencies are more on that pre-award side for our exam. And then we cannot talk about being a certified grant professional in the writing area without having you write something. And this is so key, particularly right now where we have AI coming into play and the advent of grant professionals using AI. You do not have that luxury when you sit for our exam. Everything is shut down. You are given a part of a grant application to write, and you have 90 minutes to write that component. And we start out strong with persuasive argument at 34%, organizing your ideas at 22%, conveying ideas at 18%, using the information. When you get that prompt, make sure that you're using the information that was given to you in the prompt. 12%. Use of the English language and grammar, 10%, and formatting is 4%. The fee for our exam is listed here as $695, but I believe it's $639, not $695. We give you a little bit of a discount. So those are our fees for the GPC exam. If you have been familiar or following us for a while, you might have known that in the past we have offered a discount if you are a member of the Grant Professional Association, which is the membership organization that first came up with the idea of creating this credential. But now it is the same no matter if you are a member of the GPA or not. But when you are processing your payments, you will find that you will go through the GPA website to do that. So we don't want that to cause any confusion. We are still a independent nonprofit organization. Next slide, please. Maintaining the credential, keeping those pencils sharpened and standing out from the crowd. Like Cynthia said in the beginning, when you have an accredited credential, you are required to maintain it. It's not one of those, well, I got it and that's it. So every 3 years, we are asking for you to demonstrate to us that you are up on your professional development. You are getting those education points. You are still out in the community volunteering. You are coming up with, you're being a thought leader in this area of the grants world. All of the things that go into standing out from the crowd as a grant professional, we want to hear about it and learn about it. There's another thing that we have with we call it CMP, is that let's say you decide, I want to do a study or I want to come up with a podcast, things like that. You can submit those ideas to us before you go about taking on that task, and that can also qualify for your CMP project. And we also give credits for getting another accredited credential. That's another way for you to get points. So that is our maintenance program. Our next slide. Now, I hope that you feel warm and welcome by now, but just in case you don't, here's a lovely picture of a few of our board members that we have. See those smiling faces? You do not have to be afraid of us. We want to welcome you into the fold. So now we want to tell you, what are your resources and your next steps? The first thing you want to do, visit our website. Our website it tells you all of our business. There is nothing that we do that you will not find on that website. And if you can't find it, send us an email and we will share with you what we can. Next, you want to take the GPC eligibility quiz. This just gives you an idea if you're eligible. At the end of that, you'll be prompted to either pay for the exam or you close it out and say, at least I know that I can do it, or I'm not quite eligible yet. I need to work on these few things, and then come back to us when you're ready. You can also register for and attend GPC fireside chats. We happen to have one on tomorrow at 10 o'clock where we'll be going deeper into the GPC process. So if you're available, please join us. And then you can browse the resources that we have designed to help you prepare for the exam. We expect that this is an exam that tests your knowledge that you already have. So we do not have a book or anything that you can read or a practice exam that you can take. We do have some sample questions. We have a candidate's guide. We have resources for study groups or how you can form your own study group. And I saw Kathy on here. She's our current vice president. She is in the process of coming up with an excellent workshop that's going to talk about test taking strategies just in general. Just because sometimes it's anxiety more so than anything. It's not that you don't know the work because you've been doing it for years. It's just I haven't taken an exam in a long time. I'm not sure if I'm ready to do it, but I guarantee you are ready. So make sure that you're browsing that prepare for the exam page and then learn about available GPC scholarships. We are closing out our scholarship phase for right now for this year. However, we always have opportunities coming up. So visit our website and then they come around as well every year. So we are just waiting for you. We are here and we are waiting with open arms. Next slide, please. And as always, please stay in touch. What was it in high school? And I'm probably dating myself. What is it? KIT, keep in touch. Stay in touch with us. You can email us. You can go to our website and always sign up for our newsletter. There you'll have great tidbits. You'll learn about other GPCs. And always remember that we're just one email or call away. And that is my presentation for GPCI. Cynthia?
Thank you so much, Lakeisha. We appreciate it. Tip, can I ask you to give us a little bit more information about NGMA and the CGMS program?
Absolutely. We'll just, since you already know who I am, let's just keep moving forward on the slides. If you don't mind, Tammy, we'll just keep going one more and we'll just dive right in. So I wanted to set up by talking a little bit about our history. So the first CGMSs were given in 2011. If you've been around NGMA very long, you may have heard of the storied meeting in Hershey, Pennsylvania, where the CGMS was created. And we gave the first credentials out. And so it really was a 10-year span before the board said, you know what, I think this credential is really valuable to the profession and we want to make an investment in it. And so we began the process of hiring staff, hiring consultants to help us kind of re-envision the program to meet those accreditation standards that started in 2021. In 2022, we finally got our certification council sat and creating our policies and procedures and a candidate handbook, which was published in 23. And then the next process was our exam review and revision, and that launched last spring. And so we've had now a year of the program being up and running. We were certified last fall by the NCCA, and we're super excited. And now the CGMS is growing leaps and bounds, which is amazing. Something new that we just started rolling out is our digital badge, so that now CGMS credential holders can have an icon they can put into their signature line of their emails, they can put on their social media. It creates a link to your own individual page that shows what the credential is and when your renewal date is and everything, and you'll be able to really promote yourself all over the internets with the new digital badge. So we're super excited about that. And then what's coming up next for the program is we begin to relook at the code of ethics. It hasn't been looked at in a while. So that is the last part of our process of just making sure everything in the CGMS program has been revised and is up to date and exactly where it should be. Next slide. So what is the CGMS? We are the credential validating comprehensive knowledge in the grants lifecycle. We qualify folks who are more on the post-award side. I'm talking, Lakeisha mentioned, they're a little bit more focused on the pre-award side, while of course the pre-award does get touched on because that's part of the grants lifecycle. NGMA and the CGMS is more focused on the post-award side. But everyone from every sector that works on post-award, whether you're in higher ed, tribal government, state and local government, nonprofits, it serves all sectors. It is really to demonstrate that professional credibility and that ethical commitment in the post-award side of grants management and compliance. And as you see, part of our strategic goal right now is to make sure that the CGMS is recognized as the premier credential for grants management professionals, employers, and funders. Next slide. All right. To be eligible, you can have either a bachelor's degree from an accredited institution with 3 years of full-time grants management experience within the last 10 years. Or if you do not have a degree, you can have 5 years of experience. So those are your two entry points for eligibility for the CGMS. I put a little QR code on there if you want to look, but if you visit our website, we have a whole tab dedicated to eligibility. There's a lot of questions around eligibility, and what I would say is definitely look a little bit deeper at that website, and then feel free. I know it's not always a black and white. People move in and out of their positions, but they also sometimes do part-time in grants management, or they do something kind of grants management adjacent. And so we can talk to you if you have questions about that. So just know you can always reach out to us and we'll help you through that. Next slide. Our exam is 150 multiple choice questions. It covers the entire grants lifecycle. Like I mentioned, it is computer-based. You have a 3-hour testing window with one scheduled 10-minute break. And there's 2 ways to take that exam. It is either to visit one of the testing centers, or you can do a live remote proctor at your own home. So depending on where you are and what your access is to a testing venue, then you have some choices. We do have credential holders really all over the world. And so that live remote proctoring gives us a lot of options. You see our exam fees here. They are $500 or $674 if you're not a member of NGMA. There is a retake fee should you need to retake it on the second go. All right, and the next, to maintain the credential, we've talked a lot about the idea that this credential is an investment in the long term. You would renew every 3 years. In your 3-year window, you must earn 60 CPE credits, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a second. There is an application and a fee and of course you have to document those CPEs. And then again, you have to adhere to that code of ethics. That's a big part of the program, is that acknowledgement of the code of ethics and a promise to uphold it. Next slide. And here we talk about CPEs because we're a little bit different than I think, I know GPC does it a little bit differently. We do not hold our own credits. Our credits are all, we use CPEs, and those are credits that are offered by registered sponsors of the National Association of State Boards of Accountancy. And all of your credits, your CPEs, must be related to grants, financial management, audit controls, or other grant-making processes. And of course, accountancy looks a lot different depending on what you're doing in relation to accountant. A lot of the CPEs out there are very much accountant specific, folks who have their CPAs. There are a lot of grant-related CPEs, however. We do a ton of them. We do 10 webinars a year as part of our membership. Our annual grants training usually has 18 to 20. Our grants management body of knowledge training. And then we just launched our Grants Management Academy, which now has on-demand and virtual courses that offer CPEs as well. So we're trying to make CPEs as flexible as possible for those credential holders. Our Corporate Alliance Partners program, which we call our CAP program, has a ton of providers who also offer CPEs. And then there are several other providers out there in the grant space that we're not connected with, but offer free and or paid CPEs as well. So they are out there, but we're hoping to, and we've worked really hard to make CPEs a little bit easier to find for our credential holders. Next slide. All right. And this is just our closing information. Visit our website, ngma.org/certification. We've got the QR code there. CGMS at ngma.org is a central place that you can ask your questions. Elizabeth Vilke is in our office. I think she's also somewhere scrolling in the chat right now. She manages our certification program and has really been the point person to build this program into what it is today. And she is awesome, but she will answer your questions for sure. So reach out if you're interested in getting that CGMS. And that is all. Thank you. I'll turn it back to Cynthia.
Great. Thank you so much, Tip and NGMA. Next up, we have Reno to tell us more about the CFRE credential. Go ahead, Reno. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Glad to be here. My name is Reno, CEO of the Certified Fundraising Executives International. And if we can go to the next slide, please. I want to start with why this credential exists because it's simple. Anyone can call themselves a fundraiser. There's no license or no gate. But the CFRE provides independent verification that a professional has the knowledge, the experience, and really importantly, the commitment to ethical practice to meet a globally recognized standard. And that really matters for three different audience groups at once. For the individual, it helps to build credibility and proof, not self-assertion. For employers, it's a trusted benchmark for hiring, developing talent, and it also helps reduce hiring risk. And for the profession as a whole, it strengthens public trust in fundraising. That three-way value, individual, employer, and profession, is a lens for what I'll cover in the next few slides. So if we can go to the next slide. So let me introduce the credential itself. The CFRE is the only globally recognized accredited credential for fundraising professionals. It's been around since 1981, and it's currently held by more than 8,200 fundraisers across 30 different countries. And the key word for World Accreditation Day, right? It's accredited by by ANSI, National Accreditation Board, or ANAB for short, to the ISO standard for personnel certification. And that really was important to give us that credibility out globally in the marketplace. That accreditation is the through line for everything we'll cover related to our role, the competencies we test, and who is eligible, and how we keep CFREs current. Next slide, please. So CFRE International is the organization. We are an independent, nonprofit standard-setting body, and the key word there is independent. We don't sell the training or the education, we certify. And so that separation is deliberate. It keeps the credential objective and protects its value to the people who rely on it, which is all of the things everybody else has already talked about today. So three things that define our role. We're independent and global. Fundraisers in more than 30 countries across nonprofits, education, healthcare, religious organizations, and the arts, to name a few sectors, rely on the CFRE. We exist to protect public trust. When a donor or a board sees CFRE after someone's name, it's really a signal of demonstrated competence and ethics. And critically for today, because we're accredited, we're not self-declared. We go through an extensive annual process for documenting our development process, our governance, our policies, our procedures. And, that's really one of those key differentiators between a credential and a certificate of completion. Next slide. So when you sit for the CFRE exam, you're tested across 6 different knowledge domains: donor research, securing the gift, relationship building, volunteer involvement, leadership and management, and ethics, accountability, and professionalism. These domains are not created in a vacuum. They're not our opinion for the team that runs CFRE. They come out of a periodic job analysis of practicing fundraisers. We do a survey in the field to find out what work fundraisers actually do, how often they do it, and how important that work is. Then the exam syllabus and all of the exam questions follow from that evidence. And that's how an accredited credential stays valid and current. Next slide. So who qualifies for the CFRE? CFRE is intentionally a mid-career credential. You earn your eligibility before you ever sit for the exam. Candidates document 3 areas on their application. So education, we're looking for continuing education in fundraising topics. So this is going to be webinars like this that you attend, or conferences, different seminars, etc. Your professional practice as a fundraiser. At a minimum, 3 years of paid professional fundraising experience are required. And then professional performance, actual results. So the funds, the amount of funds that you've raised over time, or completed projects like communications projects or management projects. The best way to figure out your eligibility and where you stand in all of that is to come to the CFRE website and begin your application. There's no cost to do that. Our application is dynamic, and as you start to fill it out, you'll see in real time how close you are to meeting the requirements. One thing I want to highlight is that there is no college degree requirement. Eligibility is built on these 3 items I talked about earlier. And that's deliberate. It helps meet fundraisers where the profession is. And once those requirements are documented, you can sit for the exam. Next slide, please. So becoming a CFRE isn't only about demonstrating your knowledge, your skills, and your abilities on the exam. Fundraisers have a shared ethical requirement. And part of becoming a CFRE, you also have to formally agree to follow and abide by the International Statement of Ethical Principles in Fundraising, our Donor Bill of Rights, the CFRE International Accountability Standards, and of course, you have to agree to follow the various applicable laws and regulations for where you practice fundraising. Next slide. And so maintaining the credential, just like everybody else before me, right? This is where accreditation and certification really pay off, because a credential is only as good as its continued relevance. CFREs recertify every 3 years. And to do that, you continue to meet the same pillars for education, professional practice, and professional performance. There is no re-examination unless you let your certification lapse. Then you do have to start the process over again. Maintenance is about staying actively engaged through the profession over time. And again, that's one of the main differences between a credential and an educational certificate, is that ongoing requirement. So the CFRE isn't a one-time achievement you hang on the wall. It's an ongoing commitment to continued competence and ethical practice. And that's the assurance the credential gives the public. On my last slide here are links that you'll receive once we send this presentation out to different resources that are available. They're all available on the CFRE.org website. So with that, let me hand it back to Cynthia.
Thank you so much, Reno. We are lucky enough, as I mentioned, to have 2 individuals who are certified to share their journey in the certification process. Julie, I'd like to start with you. If you could tell us a little bit about your story and the journey you have.
Absolutely. My pleasure to do so. So I actually started out in the world of education. I didn't start out in social service. And for many organizations, they come to the grant space from somewhere else. So I'm not any different in that regard. But in my particular case, as a former teacher, I understood the concept of licensure, right? I had to be licensed to teach in actually all 4 states that I taught in. and I had to take competency exams. In my particular case, it was a praxis exam, one for general education and teaching, and another one for my subject matter, which was music. But when I transitioned to writing grants full time for my school district, I really had to like learn on the job. I was writing for my classroom before then, and I learned from the person that I was working with, right? She'd seen the potential in me to write grants for more subjects than I was currently writing in. And I really didn't have much direction because she also came into the field not having formal training in grants because there is no bachelor's degree in grant writing. But we, in essence, searched around and we took a variety of courses, right? Individual courses, week-long series of courses, and we really even received certificates in grantsmanship when we were done with those courses. As teachers, we understood that these certificates simply meant that we had taken a course of study and we passed a test. It was kind of like when I took a course in college. I took the course, I took the exams, I got a grade. The certificates made me feel like I had the basic knowledge that I needed to be able to move forward in the profession. But at that point, I didn't have much experience, right? I was still trying to figure out what I knew, what I still needed to learn. And I needed to figure out, well, what was there to learn? And that's when credentials came into my life. I was looking for a list of what I should know and be able to do in the grants field. And the first credential that I learned about was actually the CFRE, which, if you notice, is not the one that I have. But I was considering the CFRE at the same time as I was debating whether I wanted to follow the typical, or what I thought was the typical progression through development to becoming a chief development officer. And as I learned about development and I learned about myself, I really learned that there were a lot of development activities that weren't my passion, just grants were. So then I investigated credentials related to grant writing because that was the activity I was doing primarily at that moment in the grants field. And I came upon GPCI and the GPC credential, and that their list of credentials and specific skills allowed me to really understand this is the standard knowledge in the grants field, at least in terms of the perspective from the applicant organization. Over time, I started my own consulting business, and the GPC credential allowed me to quickly showcase my expertise to organizations I was talking to. It was an independent validation of those knowledge and skills, where telling people how much money I had raised was still my word on a piece of paper. I'm now the owner of a consulting firm with over nearly 20 grant professionals on staff, and I similarly look for individuals with credentials for the same reason. As my firm has moved more into grant management, specifically in the area of government grants, which I had done some of when I was at the school district, I then looked for a credential that highlighted that particular skill, which I found in the CGMS credential. So similar to the GPC credential being a more specific skill set within the development field, I saw CGMS as a more specific skill set within the grants field, one that has its own specific area of expertise. Because while grant management, and I've kind of been answering that question a lot in the Q&A and in the chat, grant management is just one part of the GPC credential. This credential also comes at the life cycle from a different perspective, though, that of the federal government, right? Which impacts the type of grant professionals who pursue this credential. Many of them may be within government themselves, or they may be monitoring kind of the grant administration by subrecipient organizations. I know a ton of people at state and local and county government levels who have the credential. But I found it, for me, I was helping organizations build their capacity in managing grants. Grants of all kinds, frankly. My CGMS, I use every single day in organizations who are managing foundation and corporate grants, because the standards that are federal grant, that most people think of for federal grants, I think of as more like that's the gold standard. And so being able to know, be able to do, understand that, have my CGMS really points to my expertise in grants management, no matter what the funding source is. So these credentials gave and frankly continue to give me an outline of where I need to continue to grow as a grant professional, even as somebody who's been in the field for nearly 25 years. I know that my company uses credentials of all kinds to guide our staff, no matter what their area of expertise. And as I became a trainer, I continued to use these credentials to guide training sessions I developed to help other grant professionals to grow in areas beyond the area of, well, I know how to write a grant, I know how to manage a grant. It's a lot more nuanced than that, and it continues to change. So our profession is much deeper, and I believe these credentials, the variety of credentials that we have, really reflect that across the development field. Kristen, I'll pass it over back to you to tell your journey.
Thanks so much, Julie. I didn't realize how many parallels we have in our stories. So, like Julie, I stumbled into the nonprofit sector. I was a historian, and so I knew I could write, but I didn't know what else I could do. And I accepted a job as a grant writer with precisely zero experience. I had never written a grant, but they took a chance on me and it changed my life trajectory, and I'm so grateful. So, as you can imagine, someone trying to be self-taught, I was looking for all the resources I could find so that I could do right by this mission, this organization that I was working at. Um, and so I was taking a slew of courses and reading books, and of course became aware of these different credentials. But at that time, I was at a very small grassroots organization with no budget. You guys know this story. And I too had no budget and thought, well, maybe someday. So I kept my eyes open. And then slowly my job began to evolve. Like all of you who have been at small organizations, you know, you wear a lot of hats. So it was not my intention, but soon, because I could write, they asked me to write some appeal letters. I'm like, well, that's different from a grant, but sure, I'll give it a whirl. And then pretty soon I was partnering with the board. And then I was planning, fundraising events. And so I was continuing to be an ongoing learner. That is who I am. But at that point, there wasn't a plan for a credential. So fast forward about a decade, and I became a consultant. And suddenly, just like Reno mentioned, I realized anyone could start a business and say, I'm a qualified expert. And I thought, how in the world am I going to differentiate myself from others in the nonprofit sector? We all have the passion. A lot of us have the experience, but I wanted something that would help be that external seal of approval that we've been hearing about today. And so I began to look into the credentialing process more specifically and began to create a plan for myself. Because I had started in grants, the GPC felt like the most logical first step for me. So I thought about where I was in the journey and then where I wanted to be. I knew I loved other aspects of development, which is a little different from Julie, and that's okay. There's room for all of us in this. And so I started to study for the GPC, but knew I wanted to get my CFRE soon after that, but it would require a little more preparation. The advantage for me is I was able to study for and prepare for both of them in tandem. So I was very strategic about what continuing ed credits I pursued. I made sure to document those volunteer hours and anything else that was relevant to each application. And then I was completing them in tandem with each other as I moved forward. So it really helped me be very conscientious with my time. And so initially, as I said, this was motivated by prospective clients' perceptions of me. But as I pursued the credentials, I realized that there were so many other benefits that were inherent in this process as well as in the credentials themselves. The first part, and the part that may have surprised me the most, is how important it was for me personally to feel that validation, that I had the confidence, because I had now been in the sector for quite a while, but I was completely self-taught. I had never taken an official, college class or anything like that, just webinars and conferences. And so this was important for me to say, I actually have been intentional. I filled in the gaps in my own learning, and now I am ready to come alongside these nonprofit organizations that I care about so deeply. So that was an unexpected benefit for me. I think the other thing that many folks don't realize is the value of the community. Suddenly, when you have the study groups, or you're networking with folks to say, I am pursuing this, people come out of the woodwork to support you. I had people offering me, to let me borrow their books or their study materials, cheering me on. So it grew my network and my helped establish my place in the sector in a way that I didn't expect. And those folks are still now, many years later, in my circle of support, right? They are still inviting me to speak or to be a part of their work or to partner with them. And then finally, I would just echo what we've heard before. It's the ethics as well. Having these credentials aligns us with ethical practices and is so critical, both for our clients, but also, I think, just broadly for our sector. We want to be trusted, and being able to say that I sign that ethical statement every time I renew my credentials is a really powerful way of affirming who we are and who we want to be in the world. Cynthia, I'm throwing it back to you. We've only got a few minutes, but
thank you so much. Yeah, thank you, Kristen and Julie, for sharing your certification journey. Well, based on all of the comments and questions that I see, I think we could probably spend the rest of the day answering these questions and talking. I'm going to take us a bit off script, panelists, because I think we have time for just one question. And the one that I'm seeing quite a bit in the comments and the Q&A is about choosing the right credential. And how do I know what is the right credential for me? So Julie, I'm going to put you a little bit on the spot here because you were talking a little bit about this in your journey, and ask you if you can tell us a little bit about your advice for attendees on how they might start the process of thinking about what is the right credential. I think you mentioned you were looking at the domains and the competencies that each covered when you considered, and then other panelists, feel free to jump in on that same question. Julie, are you available to jump off mic and just answer how you might consider which credential is right for you?
Yeah. So as I looked at this,
Thanks.
I did a lot of focus on what kind of grants I worked with, right? And I've been answering this quite a bit in the chat. I really see these credentials like two Venn diagrams, right? Or a Venn diagram where they overlap like this, right? Because they both have in the middle the idea of grants management kind of overlaps. Like that's one of the competencies with GPCI or the GPC exam. But when you're researching opportunities at the federal or governmental level, it absolutely intersects with CGMS as well. They really come from the governmental perspective. And over here, I really feel like if I'm a nonprofit, the wheel there really appealed to me. If I'm primarily working in pre-award with a little tiptoe, like the phrasing the GPC credential uses is enough grant management to be able to do pre-award well, right? And the GPC, the CGMS kind of functions in the same way, where you're really doing post-award, but it applies to all post-award, even not just federal or governmental post-award. So I got it primarily the CGMS because I was doing mostly pre-award. I was doing a little bit of post-award. And then the more post-award I started doing, and especially the governmental side, because I was a federal and still am a federal grant writer, but now I do federal grants management. Those really, that overlap caused me to have both.
Mhm. Great, thank you. Any thoughts from our organizational representatives on kind of that idea of which one do I choose?
I can talk a little bit about it since I also have my GPC. It was the same thing, even though when I kind of fell into grant writing, and that's why we need these credentials, right? Because a lot of people didn't start out saying, I want to be a grant writer. They kind of, it blossomed as a part of their career. So I really started out in the post-award side at a nonprofit and moved into the writing side, and then decided to go for my GPC because I was focusing on the writing. It's not to say that I never managed a grant or I still do not, but the writing was where I wanted to elevate myself in the profession. And I look at this as three things. It's one, elevating the profession as a whole. It's also demonstrating your own commitment to professional development. And then it's demonstrating to your clients or to your employer that you're committed to the profession. And everyone can appreciate that. So because of that, I looked at the GPC more, but I will tell you that one thing that I wanted to take away from today's session was more information about the CFRE and the CGMS because I am considering another credential. So it's a great place for us to see where we already understand that we desire to be the thought partners and forward thinking in this field. But now how do we continue to elevate that? Because that's what professional development and credentialing is all about. So that's one takeaway from me.
Well, Lakeisha, that is a wonderful note to end on. I appreciate that, and we're just a minute over. So I want to thank all of our panelists for joining us today, sharing your thoughts, and thank all of our attendees as well. Just a few follow-ups. You will be receiving, again, the slides and questions. We will look at and try to get to all of those. There were many questions. Thank you for that participation. So do look for the slides and the recording. Thank you again to the panelists, to the attendees, and have a wonderful afternoon, everybody, or evening, depending on where you're calling from. Thank you again.